Hello and welcome to the Fundamental 5 Training Instructional Strategies that Increase Rigor within the Classroom. And you're in this training today simply because it is a campus initiative, and we performed this training on our campus last school year, and we've also did a training during Summit this summer. And so a lot of the components of this training can't be done in a group setting, and some of the activities aren't going to be able to be done, but you'll get the framework of the Fundamental 5 by us going through and having good conversations and talking a lot about what these strategies do when all done within a classroom. So today you're going to look at ways to increase rigor within the classroom. And so through that, we're going to be able to identify strategies to increase rigorous learning. And then you'll be able to practice and have an opportunity to look at possible quick writes to demonstrate your knowledge about the 5 rigorous strategies for the classroom. And so when looking at the Fundamental 5, and you should have a book, a Fundamental 5 book at this point. If you don't have the Fundamental 5 book, let me know, and I will make sure you get a copy of that book. 5 instructional strategies that you'll see that you'll do on a daily basis will incorporate strong and powerful and meaningful learning within your classroom. And I like to look at the Fundamental 5 in this way that when much like a s'more, you take a graham cracker and by itself it's good, but it's not something amazing. No different than just the chocolate by itself. It's good, but it's not something that's lasting and amazing and something you want or you crave. Same thing with a marshmallow. But man, when they're together, they make something magical. When you're sitting around the campfire and you're eating that s'more, it's not like, oh, we're eating chocolate or we're eating marshmallow. We're eating a s'more, and that's what these 5 things do by themselves. They're good strategies, but when you do all 5 together and you do them on a daily basis and you do them on a consistent basis, they are amazing. And so you'll see that within your classroom, whether you're a 20-year veteran teacher or you're a first-year teacher. These are things that help improve instruction within your classroom. The first thing is framing the lesson. We've got to know where we're going, and that's what framing the lesson does. It allows you to really state that learning objective and state how students will demonstrate what they learned. So what are we going to learn and how we're going to get there? And so it gives those students a roadmap when they walk into a classroom every day. And a good example is we will identify the components of an effective lesson frame. And I will create and share a lesson frame with my table group. And as you can see, there's a we will statement and an I will statement. And there's a lot of dialogue with we will, I will, and what the verbiage there, what's the appropriate, what my philosophy and according to the Fundamental 5 is that these are 2 really the verbiage that he likes to use is we will and I will. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's the exact words that I'd like for you to use. What I want you to know is that we do have a learning objective in telling the students what we're going to be doing and then how we're going to get there, how we're going to prove that we mastered the learning objective for the day. And so those 2 things need to be on your board on a daily basis, and framing the lesson. And not just on the board, but you want to start a lesson by telling the students, hey guys, this is where we're going. This is what we're going to be learning today. And so when I walk into a classroom, I want to be able to look at a student and say, hey, what are you learning? What are you doing today? And they're able to really look and know from the conversations that you've had with them right off the bat, from the roadmap of where they're going for the day. They're able to say, hey, that today I'm going to learn the components of effective lesson frame, and how I'm going to prove that I learned it is I'm going to share that lesson frame with my table group. So it's just making sure that they know what they're doing and framing the lesson for them. So very, very important part of the planning piece within that lesson frame. And so if you were at in the presentation or in a group, you'd be creating a lesson frame at your table. So you're going to state that learning objective, state how students will demonstrate what they have learned during the lesson. So you'll have an opportunity to practice that. So I encourage you as you get the book and as you go through that first framing the lesson, that you practice that. You go over it with your team, and you'll get lots of practice with this because it is part of the backwards lesson design, which is another vital, important piece to the learning that takes place at Hackberry. So the next piece of the Fundamental 5 is working in the power zone. There's 3 zones when we talk about the fundamental five and the power zone, and that's the work area, the lecture zone, and the power zone. The work area is at the teacher desk, and it's usually used to take attendance. Teachers are there to grade papers, to work on various activities, but very little learning is taking place when you're in the work area. And so, what we'd like to see is less than 10% of the time that we're in the work area. Lecture zone is in the front of the room. And so, there is a time and a place for you to stand up and do whole group lecturing, but it's few and far between. You want to be in that power zone, which is moving throughout the classroom, and making sure that you have proximity to students, and checking to see if they're following you as you're talking and communicating with them, or even when they're working, that you're moving throughout the room. Very few times do you need to be standing in the front of the room and just being a statue, or very few times do you need to be working behind your desk. Those times are designed for during your conference time, and those type of times throughout the day that you need to be in the power zone. You need to be moving. You need to make sure that you're able to manage, and you're able to make any necessary changes throughout the class period that you need to make. So teaching in close proximity to one student or a small group of students to the entire classroom. So making sure that you see the benefits, and you'll see that there's lots of benefits to being in the power zone. And so on-task behavior increases, discipline issues decrease, and student retention increases. So the third fundamental five is frequent small group purposeful talk about the learning. And so we always talk about increasing rigor in the classroom. We want to create challenging opportunities for students. We want all students to be held accountable for their learning. And one of the easiest ways to increase rigor within the classroom is purposeful conversation. You could do that in many different ways. We like to do the turn and talk. The frequency is for about every 10 to 15 minutes, a teacher should have students turn and have conversations about their learning, have those design questions. And the art of this, and we'll talk about it with critical writing as well, but is your seed question, your pre-planned guide to the conversation. The planning piece is so important to this, and there's an art to it. And you want to make sure that you can ask those questions, and that those students are having meaningful conversations. And then within that, you're holding all students accountable for learning. And so you're in the power zone, and you're asking those questions, and students are turning and talking. It's a powerful, powerful classroom when that happens, but making sure that they're high rigor questions, but students are held accountable to the learning. And so what you'll see there is you're not just calling on students. When you ask questions, you're not calling on the students that's raising your hand. That was a traditional classroom. You see, you ask a question, the kids that know the answer, they raise their hand. You call on one of those students, yay, all the kids know it, is the assumption there. Well, not all kids are held accountable to learning there. Only the kids that are paying attention, only the kids that have grasped the concept are answering the question. So it's important that when we do that turn and talk and we're in the power zone, we can tell if all students are held accountable to the learning, because they're having to have real conversations about that. And you can do a quick thumbs up, thumbs down if you said, did all the students have good conversations? Did any partners have any questions about this? You have an opportunity to kind of check the learning of everyone at that point, and it's meaningful. And so during the training, you would be answering these questions. What are the key components of a frequent small group purposeful conversation? And then using the question STEM guide page, create 3 question stems within your content area. And so the 3 question STEM guides are within the fundamental 5, are in the small group purposeful talk section within the fundamental 5 textbook. So make sure you go through the book and you look at how to develop those STEM questions, and they really help you develop rigorous questions for students and their intentional questions. The fourth component is recognize and reinforce. So when you recognize and reinforce, academic reinforcement and recognition improves in achievement, not just high grades. Social and behavioral recognition, a student that has some difficulty turning in work now turns in complete assignments, throwing trash from the floor away without being asked. and the necessary components are personal and specific. We'll get into specific here in the next slide. So examples, reward and acknowledge for A's and 10-point improvements from the previous exams. Don't tell those students whether it's an A or 10 points. Recognize, reward students that are on time in class for the entire week. One of the great example of this is we use Dojo on the campus for points. So when you are in front of the class and you're asking the kids to line up on the carpet, or you're asking the kids to come over for whole group instruction, and you see these 3 students that are doing a great job, they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. The Dojo points are pulled up, and they get that ding, ding, ding because you just gave those 3 students, and you say thank you for coming over and having a seat quietly and doing exactly what you're supposed to. Joe and Michael and Juan, thank you guys for doing what you're supposed to do. And guess what happens? Those other 17 students in the classroom are getting quiet. They're moving to where they're supposed to. And so you're recognizing, you're being specific, and there you've got that motivation for those students, and it turns to all the students within the classroom. So you're so specific in that reinforcement. What's wrong with the following statements? This is an exercise to be done during the class. Good job, class. Most of you turned in your homework this week. So you would want to be specific to who turned in their homework and if they were on time in doing that. I would like to thank the students that picked up the mess in the hallway. Specific again. Good job, Joe. What did Joe do that was great? And so again, being specific and reinforcing that positive behavior is a great way to decrease negative behavior within your classroom and pick up on the positive behavior. So the last and final piece of the fundamental 5 is writing critically. It's another way to easily increase the rigor within your classroom. We talked about the STEM questions earlier, and so it's no different with this. It's something that as a campus we're really needing to focus on from kindergarten all the way to 5th grade, is teaching our kids how to write critically. How to write incomplete sentences, how to do proper grammar. These are all things that we need to practice on a daily basis. And so when we create those STEM questions, what a great way to have students write critically. It can be 2 to 3 sentences. It doesn't have to be a page to write critically. So writing for the purpose of organizing, clarifying, defending, refuting, analyzing, dissecting, connecting, expanding on ideas or concepts. Assess the critical writing every time. It doesn't have to be graded every time. It can be assessed by the teacher, by observation, peer review, self-assessment. Use a rubric. Examples of a critical writing or a sentence on a 3x5 card, a bubble chart, a paragraph, heading with the bullet points. Our students need to write more. Check for proper capitalization and periods at the end of the sentences. These are great ways to have students practicing on a daily basis. And again, this needs to be happening across our entire campus. We've got to improve our writing. We've got to get used to it. Even this day and age with technology and students using their cell phones to simply text, we've got to do a better job of getting kids to learn to write critically and to express themselves and to think for themselves and to think deeply and to be more innovative and creative. And that even aligns with the writing. So it's important that all those things take place. So today we went over the fundamental 5, and so these are things that I'll look for as I'm coming through. And I don't want to see 1 or 2 of these things. I want to see these things in unison. I want to see them working together because they will make an improvement in your classroom. And so that is all we have on instructional strategy components, the fundamental 5. Thank you guys.